So last class we have discussed the duty cycle. Now, so duty cycle is important because of the temperature rise. The approximate temperature rise expression can be derived. Now, actually, to derive the temperature rise of the machine accurately, it is difficult because it is not a homogeneous medium. It has got different materials, that is copper, insulation, iron, air. Different material has different conductivity and other properties. So actual temperature rise for different parts, it is possible, but that requires a very detailed calculation of finite difference or finite element methods. But the approximate temperature rise of the machine can be derived experimentally. That is considering a more machine to be a single entity. We consider that the total loss in the machine, the loss, it includes the copper loss and the core loss and the stray load losses, mechanical losses, everything. The total loss, it manifests itself as this is the total loss which will create the heat. Now, this portion of the loss, a part is absorbed by the different components, and the temperature is increased, and a part is lost to the atmosphere. So, if we consider, say, for a small time interval dt, and temperature rise is d theta, then the total loss in the total energy generated due to loss is W into dt. That has to be dissipated. Now, a part of this is absorbed. So, if the weight of the body is G, the specific heat is S, then S watt per second per unit weight per degree centigrade, then the heat energy absorbed will be Gs d theta. Now, consider that this is not possible to have just theoretically calculate the value of S, because there are different materials. But for considering machine to be a homogeneous body with weight G and specific heat of S, so the heat absorbed would be Gs d theta. And if the cooling surface area is a meter square, the cooling coefficient is lambda. Then for temperature rise of 0 degree, that temperature rise of this will be theta, sorry, it is 0 degree here. Theta degree, the total heat energy dissipated during dt will be a lambda theta d theta. So, energy balance equation, this is the total energy due to the losses is equal to the energy heat absorbed plus the heat dissipated. So, if we can rewrite this equation as d theta by w minus a lambda theta is equal to dt g by gs. So, d theta by w by a lambda minus theta is equal to dt by gs by a lambda. Now, from here integrating we get log E is equal to W by A lambda minus theta is equal to A lambda gs t plus k. So k is a constant at time t is equal to 0, u is equal to say theta 1. Therefore, k is equal to, putting the values, k is equal to this. So from here we get A lambda by gst is equal to log E by W by A lambda minus theta by W by A lambda minus theta 1. So that gives W by A lambda minus theta is equal to W by A lambda minus theta 1 is equal to e to the power A lambda by gs into t. Therefore, your theta is equal to W by A lambda minus W by A lambda minus theta 1 into e to the power A lambda gs, A lambda by gst. Now, actually, this is an exponential equation, so it will become steady only at t is equal to infinity. theoretically. So say that temperature is theta f. So theta f is basically W by A lambda. So your equation becomes theta is equal to theta f minus theta 1 e to the power A lambda by Gs into T. Now Gs by A lambda is called the heating time constant tau k of the machine. So then this expression becomes theta is equal to theta f minus theta 1 e to the power minus T by tau k. Now tau k, it is a design, it is normally in the range of 1 hour to 5 hours. For any standard design machine, it is something around 2 to 2.5 hours. So if we consider the machine is starting just starting from was at rest before starting, then it was, we can assume that it was at ambient temperature. So in that case, this is the ambient temperature, the initial temperature, then ambient temperature, then the temperature rise above the ambient after time t is given by theta into theta f into 1 minus e to the power minus T by tau k. Now this is a exponential equation. So from the ambient, it will increase, then become steady. This is the exponential equation. Now, obviously, you can see that by calculation, we cannot calculate these values because there are different materials. So that specific heat absorption capacity for different materials are different. But experimentally, we can obtain it. That is, the machine, we can have the heat run. We can run the machine for 2 hours. We can get the card. And from card fitting, we can get the value of tau k for a particular machine. There are experimental methods to determine tau k. Now, similarly for the cooling card, that is when the machine is cooled, that similar type of expression. So the cooling expression, this is the temperature. Now, if it is finally motor is stopped, then we can assume that after a long time it will come back to the ambient temperature. In that case, the temperature after time t will be theta dashed is theta into the power minus T by Tk, by the ambient temperature. Now, note one thing that cooling time constant and heating time constant are different. For any particular machine, it is different because your cooling effect becomes different when the machine is running and the machine is at standstill. Because tau k will depend on the cooling of the machine, whether it has a fan or what is the speed of the rotation. Now, when it is at steady standstill and when it is running, so that thermal time constant are different. So, thermal time constant of heating and running cooling are different. And also, if the speed varies over wide range, for different speed also time constants are different. So this is also exponential curve, the inverse one. So the curve will look like this and then it will come down. Now if it is if what happens, say we have talked about intermittent duty cycle, when the machine is on and off mode very frequently, in that case the temperature will vary between theta maximum value and minimum value. That minimum is not the ambient. It will not go, temperature will not go down to the ambient because that requires some 3-4 hours to go to the ambient temperature. So the temperature will toggle between the theta maximum and theta minimum. So in this type of machine, if the duty cycle is intermittent like this, then obviously there is a possibility that we can overload the machine. That's why the duty cycle is important, because we want to utilize the utilize the selected machine, the maximum output of that. So we, for intermittent or short time duty cycle, we overload the machine so that the machine within that short time period attains more or less its rated its design temperature rise, because the design temperature rise, depending on that, the insulation is selected. So unless we are operating the machine near to its design temperature rise value, we are not utilizing it properly. That's why it is always important to know the duty cycle while we are selecting the motor. So there are methods how we can select it. Now there are some small problems. It is we are given here. That is this is a full load temperature rise of totally enclosed machine is for 24 degree after 1 hour and 34 degree after 2 hours. Find the heat time constant, final steady temperature rise on full load, rating of the motor when a fan is used for heat dissipation per unit area per degree rise is by 18% of the original value. Take maximum efficiency occurs at 80% of the full load. Now the temperature rise for 1 hour is 24 degree, 2 hours is 34 degree. For the temperature rise equation, that is considering this equation, we can take the ratio, that is 1 minus e to the power minus t by, this is the thermal time constant, 1 minus e to the power minus 1 by thermal time constant equal to 34 by 24. So from here it is thermal time constant is determined, it is 1.15 hour. So theta max will be, this is 24 divided by this is 41.5 degrees centigrade. The maximum efficiency occurs at 80% of the full load. So copper loss at 80% is equal to the iron loss. So copper loss, if the total rated copper loss is WC, so 0.8 square WC is it's equal to the, this is the iron loss. This, in both the things, this notation is wrong. So we can get the copper loss is equal to 1.56 times the iron loss. So total loss will is this plus this. So it is 1.56 into 2.56 into WT. So when fan is used, allowable losses are theta max S into lambda, when the rate of heat dissipated per unit area per degree rise is equal to lambda is increased by 80%. So theta permissible loss will increase by 80%. So permissible loss at new output, say X times the original one, will be, this was the permissible loss, that is increased by 18%. So now it is 1.18 times that. So this is 3.03 WT. This is allowable now. So the allowable copper loss is, this is the total loss, this is the iron loss. So allowable copper loss is this. So this is x square. So this is proportional to x square. That is the per unit loss. There hence new output will be x into 100. So root over of 1.3 into 100 equal to 114 kVA. So depending on this, we have already defined the duty cycle, that is continuous rating we have defined, then we had short time rating. So for short time rating, actually the requirement is that duration of off time is so long that the machine goes back to the ambient temperature. Short time intermittent rating, in that case, the duration of off time is not sufficiently long, so the machine cannot go back to the ambient. So the temperature rise will go on increasing. Now, these are the three are basic. Then we had some additional, that is without off, the machine was running at no load. So then the load curves are different. Then if it is a high starting, it requires high starting torque, then starting cycles has to be calculated separately, then braking. So those, and including, we had total 8 duty cycles as defined by IS. So motor power rating will, what the motor power rating will be, selection will depend on its duty cycle. Now if it is now actually depending on the motor, the overload capacity is different. For say for normally what motors we are used in the industry are DC machine, squirrel cage induction motor, double cage deep bar induction motor, that is also squirrel cage motor. And first one is normally designed squirrel cage motor, then synchronous motor, AC commutator motors. So DC motor, the max in general design motor, the maximum torque by full load torque ratio is 2. Squirrel cage induction motor, it is 2 to 2.5. Double cage and deep bar rotor, it is 1.8 to 3. Synchronous machine 2 to 4, and AC commutator motor 2 to 3. So this is also a requirement for a particular load to be driven. What is the maximum torque requirement in any condition, that is in some transient conditions, also to be considered while motor selection. Now to derive the motor rating, there are different methods. First one is method of average losses. So it consists of method to determine average loss of the motor when it operates according to the given load diagram. Now, average loss is load diagram means that, say for T1, temporary time T1, the load is WL1. If it for time T2, it is WL2, and so on. For up to time Tn, it is WLN. Then if that is the losses for that particular period, then the average loss will be WL1 T1 plus WL2 T2 plus up to WLN Tn by T1 plus T2 up to Tn. That is sigma W LT T by sigma T. That sigma T is, this will be WT. That T is missing here. However, whole selection motor on basis of the average loss, a factor of safety is normally taken. It is 1.1 to 1.3 in account of to take care of the overloading in some conditions. This method does not consider the maximum temperature rise under variable load condition. This is an accurate and reliable method to determine average rise of temperature. Methods involve tedious empirical calculation and many times accurate efficiency curves are not available. Now, approximately that can be calculated, can be, because loss we always do not know for different loading. So calculation, it can be calculated approximately like this. Say P1, P2, P3 are the loads actually. Say for T1 load is P1, T2 for load is P2, and so on. And under these conditions, efficiencies are neta 1, neta 2, neta n, etc. In that case, your loss W1 will be P1 by neta 1 minus P1, W2 is P2 by neta 2 minus P2, and so on. That is Wn is equal to P by neta n minus Pn. Now, if A is the ratio of constant loss and variable loss at nominal load, that is the rated flow. In that case, W nominal is equal to W constant plus W variable. This is basically the core loss. This is the copper loss. So W nominal is A into W variable plus W variable. So W nominal is W variable into 1 plus A. Now P nominal by N nominal minus P nominal. This is the loss under nominal condition. So this is W nominal, which is equal to W variable into 1 minus A. So 1 by N nominal minus 1 into P, this will be nominal. P nominal is equal to W variable 1 minus A. So W variable loss under nominal load condition is 1 by N nominal minus 1 into P nominal by 1 plus A. Now X is per unit load at a variable loss will become X square W variable. So at some per unit load X, the total loss Wx will be variable loss plus the constant loss. So the constant loss will W variable A and the variable loss will be X square W variable. So your Wx will be 1 plus X square, and this W variable is replaced by this expression. So this is 1 by N nominal minus 1 into P nominal, and this is by 1 by A plus 1. So neta X is equal to Px by Px plus Wx. So neta X is equal to X times the P nominal load. So this X P nominal divided by X P nominal plus Wx. Wx means this expression. So neta X is equal to X. If we take the P nominal out, so this is X divided by X plus this expression. So this is rearranged to write this. Now from here you can see it is possible to calculate, but to calculate the efficiency for all different loads, but that means that the efficiency is quantity should be available, that is nominal efficiency, accurate value of this, then the ratio of variable and constant losses at nominal condition. These are all design data. If these are supplied by the manufacturer, then only we can calculate this. Now if we can calculate the efficiency at different load, from we can go back to the original this equation, that is we can calculate all the efficiencies, then we can calculate all the corresponding losses. So if we have the losses, we can put into this equation and then we can calculate the average loss. Now one average loss is calculated. We select a motor which has a loss less than that average loss, and then the other requirements are checked, that is whether it meets the maximum overload capacity and other things are met. If it does not meet, then we have to go for the next higher rating. Then the next method is equivalent current method. In equivalent current method, for different loading condition, say the current is proportional for T1, current is I1, for T2 time current is I2, and so on. Then the equivalent current is calculated like root over of I1 square T1 plus I2 square T2, so on, divided by T1 plus T2 plus Tn. Basically root means square value. Here we are considering that the loss is basically proportional to the I square R loss. In a self-ventilated machine, the heating and cooling depend upon the speed. For slow speed machine, the cooling is poorer, and at this normal speed machine, so the effect of speed must be allowed in this method while comparing I equivalent and I nominal with I nominal. So what we will get from I equivalent, so depending on I equivalent, we choose a machine which will have the same value of I nominal, but for all the loading conditions, speed is not same. So as the speed is different, we have seen that the thermal time constants will vary with speed. So some effect of that speed also must be allowed for. The machine selected should also be checked for overload capacity. That is also true for the previous previous method also, that is Tmax by T nominal less than 2 to 2.5 for DC motor and Tmax to T nominal for 1.6 to 2.7 for induction motor. When the overload capacity of the selected motor is sufficient and the higher is not sufficient, then the higher rating motor is selected. In case of sharp variation of current, the above relation is generalized as follows. That is, we go for the integration. Okay. I equivalent is integral of 0 to t square dt by sigma t. So I equivalent is root over of I1 by 3. If a triangular shaped current, if we have a triangular shaped current time curve, that is this type of curve, then it is root over of I1 by 3. If it is a trapezoidal, it is approximately this. Then similarly, we can have equivalent torque method. This is just a slight modification of the equivalent current. That is, here we tacitly assume that the torque is proportional to the current. So equivalent torque is root over of T1 square T1 small t1, T2 square small t2, etc. divided by T1 plus T2, root over of that. When the speed is constant, again, this torque can be considered to be directly proportional to the power. Power is directly proportional to the torque. So equivalent power also can be calculated by the same equation. So in these methods, equivalent torque is not applicable where flux is variable as in DC series motor. The methods of equivalent power is not variable for variable speed drives. So the best method available is equivalent current method. However, the method loses its acceptability where the iron mechanical and other constant losses becomes variable. That is the case when we have a drive which the speed varies over a wide range. Then we have the effect of ambient temperature also. Temperature, this is the temperature rise of the intermittent duty cycle. If we have theta, this is the temperature continuation of the previous one. That is, if theta m is the upper temperature rise, theta L is the lower temperature rise, m is. This is the final steady state temperature rise. This is the final steady state machine is cooled indefinitely. In that case, from the equations we have derived earlier, similarly, we can calculate the value of theta m and theta L, tau, this Tc and Th, and we can get the characteristics like this. So the characteristic will be like this: that temperature will increase, then decrease in this range, then increase, then decrease. This way it will go on like this between maximum and minimum value. Now if we if we take the actual temperature characteristic, that might be, if the depending on this slope of this, depending on this maximum power, then the temperature, the machine will have a characteristic like this. But actually it will never attain that temperature. So actually we select power rating such that it has a lower power and it is overloaded. So it will have a sharp temperature rise, so that we can add this maximum temperature is approximately equal to the temperature for which the machine is designed. These things are just some equal. Then consider this example, this sum, that is the induction motor runs at full load of 30 minutes with copper loss of 600 watt, followed by no load of 20 minutes with losses of 200 watt. The heating time constant is 2.5 hours and the cooling time constant is 3 hours. The final temperature rise on continuous full load is 60 degree. Obtain the mean value of temperature rise when the above intermittent duty cycle is repeated indefinitely. The total loss at full load, copper loss is 600 watt and no load for 20 minutes with the no load loss is 200 watt. So total loss is 800 watt. Total loss at no load is 200 watt. Final temperature rise is proportional to the losses. So this is final temperature rise. As per the problem, it is 60 degree. So this is 60. So theta T is 200 by 800 into 60, 15 degree. That is, this is the minimum temperature. So putting these values in the equations, we will get this is tau Th. These two values are given. That is the heating time constant 2.5 hours and this is 3 hours. So this is 30 minutes with 150 minutes. This is for 20 minutes. This is 180 minutes. Maximum temperature is 60 and this is 15. So putting the values, we will get the minimum temperature. This is the average temperature of 44 degree. So that is approximately calculated to see that what will be the temperature rise, and depending on that, we will select the motor. This derivations is not done fully, it is just sketchily done because what we require is the final equations. So the temperature rise is a very important parameter of the machine, because ultimately if the rating of any electrical equipment will depend on its temperature rise. It is dictated by its temperature rise. So that has to be selected when selecting the motor, that has to be taken care of and considered very accurately. Now, before going to any other thing, I will define some quantities related to electric drive system. Now, first of all, what is electric drive? There are electric. What happens? Drives means not only the motor, the total system. Now, electric motors are used for driving different types of load. Very common types are that we can have fan, ventilators, compressor, pumps, lifting loads, that hoist and cranes, and imparting motion to conveyors in factories, then running excavators, escalators, then electric locomotive is a very important application. Now, say for trains, trams, even that ships also. This is basically they are run by fossil fuel, but the drive basically is electrical, because electrical drive is much more efficient. So what is done, the mechanical drive system acts as a prime mover to our electrical system. So ultimately the motors are electrical. So what are the advantages of electrical? So electrical drives are used in all types of industry, that is steel, steel mill, paper mills, printing press, in all types of cutting, milling, drilling, grinding, punching, all the equipments, even in lathe machines, you will see the main drive systems are electrical motors. Now, so different applications has different requirements. So the motor selected should be suitable for that particular application. Now, so depending on different condition, we classify the drive system differently. First of all, depending on the controller, we can classify it as manual, semi-automatic, and automatic. As the name suggests, also obviously in automatic is fully automatic, that is intervention is not there. In semi-automatic, we have manual intervention, and this is totally manual. Unless very basic crude operation, we never will have fully manual operation. But for large plants, in power plants or steel plant, paper mills also, always we will have automatic drive, because there are different motors required for a particular drive system, so that has to be coordinated properly. So automatic drives are used, controlled by computers. Now, what are the main advantage of electrical drives? Electrical drives have different advantages of mechanical drive system. It is more flexible, it is more economical, because electrical motor efficiencies are much more than mechanical drives. So it is more clean, that is generating electricity might create some environmental problem and some, but that is concentrated at a particular point, that is at the power plants, and that can be taken care of. But when we are driving the motor, it is clean. There is no fumes, fuels, etc. It occupies less space compared to other forms of drive. The space requirement is less. Operating characteristic is easily modified, and any electric motor, when we go for the 4-quadrant operation, you can see that all electric motors are capable of operating in all the 4 quadrants of operation. It can be remote controlled. In any power, any factory, if you went, you will see that the drive and the control room are far away. So the operator is basically sitting in the control room, which is physically apart. So it can be remotely controlled. It requires less maintenance than mechanical drive system. It is also reliable. Reliability is also better. Motors have long lives, and the starting is very easy. Say for electric train. Now, if you compare the steam engines we had earlier, the steam, it has got some the starting long starting time. That is, if you want to run the steam engine, you have to first light the boiler, then it take around 1.5 to 2 hours to get the steam at the particular temperature. Then only the machine can operate. But no such problem is there in case of electric drive. It is instantaneous. Only that it requires electrification. That is the basic requirement. So electric drive classification we can do in different way. First one of the ways to it is divided into group drives, individual drive, and multi-motor drive. In group drive, basically one motor is driving. There is a single motor, and it on the line shaft, different smaller loads are connected. So the same motor is driving all the loads connected by pulleys, belts, or gears, or some other means. The advantage is that single large motor can be instead of small number of small motors. Rating of single large motor may be approximately reduced taking into account that is the rating of the single large motor is less than the summation of the rating of the individual small motors, because the all motors might not be loaded considering the load factor. So all motors might not be, all drives might not be operating at the same time. But this system has a great disadvantage, that is, if that large motor develops a fault, the total system will be shut down. There's no way of operating on a smaller scale. Extra, then if we want to have a standby, that large motor has to have a standby of large rating. So it is rarely used. So next, we can have an individual electric drive. In this drive, each individual machine is driven by a separate motor. This motor also inputs motion to various other parts of the machine. Example, a single spindle drilling machine and the lathe machine. Say for the lathe machine, the motor rotates the spindle. They also moves the feeds, because if you have seen a drill machine, as the part progresses, the feed has to be moved. That is a linear movement. That also important by the same motor. Then also the lubricating device has to be activated, because it is continuous under friction. That is the lathe head and the feed, lathe and the job. So that point has to be continuously lubricated. So all these three operations are done by one motor. A three-phase squirrel cage induction motor is used as a drive in many such applications. The electric motor from an integral part of the machine itself. So this is used with smaller applications, such as example I talked about the lathe machine. Then also for the drilling machine. In drilling machine, this is the motor used in universal motor. Drilling machines and the mixtures, then the mixture grinder used in household application, then the vacuum cleaner. All these motors, we will have the universal motor. And for large system, what we have, multi-motor drive system, that is for a particular operation, the different parts are driven by different smaller motors. Say for example, if we consider a steel rolling mill, there are that is which will roll the slab into thin sheets. Then there are two large rollers. These rollers are rotated. These two rollers, the top one and bottom one, are rotated by motors. Sometimes it might be for forward pass and backward pass. There might be different motors. Then associated with this system, there are different auxiliary systems. All are different. All are run by different motors. So in that case, these motors has to be coordinated, because there is a sequence of operation, and the sequence, speed control, everything is related. So we require the automatic computerized automatic control system for controlling the drive system. Then for classification on the depending on the control scheme, as I tell, depending on the control scheme, it manually controlled, semi-automatic control, or automatic control. For large processes, we will have automatic control. Semi-automatic in electric drives with semi-automatic control. Example, that is, it requires manual intervention for certain things, that is for starting, braking, reversing, changing of speed. Say for the crane, electric cranes which are used, it requires the operator for operating, for starting, braking, and operator applies his logic for operation of the machine. Then classification can be made on the depending on the speed. The first group in this nomenclature, in this classification, the first group, these drives provide uncontrolled constant speed of rotation during normal operating condition. The speed may be unidirectional or bidirectional depending on the type of load which is connected to the shaft. The magnitude of speed is not an important consideration and is permitted to fluctuate in response to the variation in the magnitude and direction of the load torque. So, say for pump, ventilators, compressors, we do not have a speed control there. The speed is basically controlled by the load on the shaft. Now for pump drive, it is unidirectional. We can't have bidirectional, but there are certain applications where we can have a bidirectional also. In the second group, this drive provides a step change in speed during normal operating condition while maintaining a constant speed for a particular operation. Rotation may be unidirectional or bidirectional depending on the load. There can be speed control, can be with or without speed control during transient period. These drives are used in various machine tools. For example, in a drilling machine, an electric drive has to provide different speed for different materials of workpiece. That is, the speed of the drilling machine will depend on the material of the piece which has to be drilled, the thickness of the thickness of the specimen, and also the diameter of the drill bit. So, but for a particular material with a particular thickness and a particular drill bit, the speed is constant. But if we change any one of these, the speed will vary. So this is a step speed change. The third group, it is provided with smooth or with narrow speed, control of speed within the certain range during normal operating condition. A drive of an electric locomotive can serve, for example, that is a speed locomotive where the smooth speed control of the traction drive is very important. That is because when we are talking about a locomotive, the comfort of the passenger is very important. We cannot have a very jerky braking or starting. So it should be smooth. Always the speed change, the starting, braking, everything has to be smooth so that the passengers are comfortable. So that is very important for this type of loads. The main drive of a rolling mill can serve as an example of drive of this group, but compared to locomotive drive, the requirement of speed control, there are different. Rolling mills, what happens, as I will say, for initially, it is a slab. How steel is rolled, what we cast is a slab. Then by passing through the rolls several times is made into a sheet. Now, for each and every pass, the gap length should be adjusted. So, as the sheet become thinner, so the speed of the rolls should be adjusted, and speed of the rolls for forward and backward pass, that also are different. So, for different purpose, we have different motors, and that is the speed is controlled. Then fourth group, this drive have to provide speed control for fixed position of the load. Say for lift, that is that speed should be smooth, and again the stopping is very important. That is, it should stop always at that particular position where the lift floor and the floor outside are at the exactly same level. So this type of drive is used for automatic drives for lifts and mines. Binders are example of this drive. These are used for automatic production line skip lifting and loading installation in sugar and chemical industries. Then 5th floor, these drives are used for position, the first one is not the normal lift, that is lifting of load, and the 5th group is the lift which is for elevators, that is, but position control is very important, that is the stop should be exactly at the same position. So there we go for this position control. Then there is a 6th, this is the factors governing selection of motors. Then when we are selecting the motor, there are different factors, that is first, nature of electric supply. Now which of whether it is AC or DC or rectified AC supply is used, that will detect what type of motor we will select. Then the nature of the drive, then nature of the drive, that will be dictated by the different drive systems. We had discussed just different groups or different types of drives. Different types will require different types of motors. Then nature of the load, whether load requires light or heavy starting torque, whether load torque requires increases with speed or remains constant, whether load has heavy inertia or which has required long starting time. So we have seen that during duty cycle in operation, these conditions were included. So this is this actually dictate the nature of the load. This whole thing is dictated by the duty cycle. The nature, electrical characteristics of the motor, the starting, running characteristics, speed control, braking, whether this is suitable for the drive, size and rating of the motor, whether the motor is run continuously, intermittently. That is, this is we have discussed during the duty cycle, that whether the machine is continuously intermittent running or short time running, the size of the motor will depend on that. Then the pull out torque or the maximum torque, that capacity, whether is suitable for the system. Besides this, then mechanical characteristics are also there. That is the type of enclosure. This is very important. Type of enclosure is determined by the environment, whether environment is explosive, whether we require a deep proof. Let's say for explosive environment, we cannot use DC machine or other machines where sparking will be there. We require totally enclosed machine. Sometimes if it is immersed, then we require deep proof enclosures. Then also bearing is also important. Depending on the application, the bearing has to be selected. Then the transmission, that is the pulley, drive, gears, other mechanical systems which is involved, that has to be. Then the noise level. Now when these machines operate, it creates a lots of noise. Then it should be seen that the noise level does not create any discomfort for the operators. This is one of the reasons the operator rooms are not inside the shop floor, but it is an isolated sealed room. Then the cost. This is obviously important. Any system, we should consider the cost, the capital cost and the running cost. And considering the motors, we know the main motors what are used in the industry are DC motor, induction motors, synchronous motors with different type of controllers. Now, previously when power electronic devices were not available that high rating, then we basically had most of motors for DC machines, because induction machine speed was basically more or less constant. was very difficult to control the speed. And this one of the main advantage of this machine is that speed control is very easy. But now we have well-developed power electronic devices and controllers. So the induction motor speed can be varied over the total range, even in that total range of the top speed characteristic, even in the creeping speed range. So induction motor has certain advantages, particularly the squirrel cage variety, because this is sturdy, do not have any moving contact. So a machine, if we compare the cost, so machine with same rating, induction motor is cheaper than the DC machine, but still now the controller is much more costly for induction motor and complicated. But even then, it is replacing the DC machine in the industry very fast because of the advantage of the other advantage of operations it has, because our supplies are mainly becoming AC. Then we have synchronous machine also. Synchronous machine is economic in the range of large power operation when the machine and for low speed and medium speed range. In this low speed, medium speed range, induction motor is not very effective because it is a distributed winding. If we want to have very large number of poles, it becomes very cumbersome, the design. And so from the point of view of cost, in this large range, that is in megawatt range, that in the low and medium power range, induction motor is mainly used, but for large power range, it is synchronous machine, and still DC machines are used, say for steel mills. So these are the main advantages of DC. Then what I'm talking about was talking about the 4-quadrant operation. This is very important for drives operation. 4-quadrant operation means these are the 4 quadrants of operation, that is speed, torque characteristic. This is the positive here, the speed for this figure, the speed in the anti-clockwise, this clockwise direction, this is considered positive. Now this load torque and this motor torque are opposing. This is a 1st quadrant motoring operation. Now this quadrant also, we have the motor torque and load torque in opposite direction, but the speed is in the reverse direction. So this is also a motoring operation, but in the 3rd quadrant, reverse motoring. For this one, these two are braking, forward braking and reverse braking. Now the it is very easy to explain if we easy to visualize if we consider a lifting load. Now say this is a simple hoist. So basically we have a count. This is we place the load here in the cage, and this is the counterweight. Now the weight of the counterweight is less than the weight of the full cage. Now this is forward motoring. For forward motoring, where load torque with loaded cage, we are lifting the loaded cage. Now we are lifting the loaded cage. Now load is the weight, so it is a active load, so it is always acting downwards. So we are moving against the gravitational pull. So that motor has to provide a torque in this direction of motion to lift the load, because counterweight is lighter than the loaded cage. Now, if we come to this, here we are, again, motion is in the same direction, that is anti-clockwise, that is we lifting, but we are lifting the empty cage. Now what happens, the counterweight is heavier than the empty cage. So when we want to impart a motion in this direction, unless we apply some braking torque, due to the weight of the counterweight itself, it will uncontrollably move in this direction. So to make the movement restrain movement, the motor has to apply a braking torque to keep the motion under control. Now actually what happens, say if we consider very simply, if we consider a DC machine operating this hoist, then due to the weight of the counterweight, the speed will go on increasing. So the motor speed will become equal to the no-load speed again, and at the next instant, when the speed becomes greater than the no-load speed of the machine, that generated EMF will be more than the supply voltage. So the motor will operate as a generator and provide some braking torque. So this is the second quadrant of operation. In the third quadrant of operation, which is we are lowering, so operate this lowering the empty cage. Here again what happens, we are lowering, so moving in this direction, but here the counterweight is heavier, so it is weight is acting in this direction. So we have to provide a motor has to provide a torque in the direction of motion, so that the empty weight comes down. So this is the reverse motoring, and this is reverse braking. Here loaded cage is lowered. Again the same thing, that is cage is loaded, so automatically the load is acting, it is active load acting downwards. So unless the motor applies some braking torque, the movement will be uncontrolled. So movement is in this direction, load is in this direction, the motor torque will be operating in this direction. So this is the example of fourth quadrant operation. Now the fact is that all electric motors are suitable for this fourth quadrant operation. They can be operated as any electric motor can be operated as a motor and the generator. So it can both operate as a motor and a generator in the braking region. So this is very important for any drive system. So as all the motors can be operated in fourth quadrant operation mode, so it is very suitable for any drive system. So I will stop today. And we can have the next class on next Thursday.